everyone, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is 5 books that I have read because of BookTube. They're not necessarily my favorite books that I've read because of BookTube, because I would be talking about some of the books that I've talked about a lot, such as 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo or The Last Time I Lied, and I wanted to talk about some slightly different books than that. So these are 5 books that I read because I heard about them on BookTube, and I tried to choose books that I would not have picked up otherwise. Hope that makes sense. They're not necessarily my all-time favorite books that I've read because of BookTube, but they're up there. They are solid books that I read because BookTube told me about them. Yeah, that was a crappy intro. We're just gonna go with it. So let's get into the books. The first book that I am going to talk about is Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. This book I heard about from Murphy Napier. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. Unkindness of Magicians is an urban fantasy set in New York. Basically, in this magical world, the unseen world, the magicians are separated into houses. And it's not like Hogwarts where you're either, like you are sorted into houses. You just kind of, a lot of it follows like a family line, or you kind of are brought into a house because of familial or, alliance type ties. Every 20 years approximately, there is what's called a turning, and the turning is a competition between the houses to determine which house is going to be in power for the next 20 years. There's an opportunity at this turning for new houses to be created and for them to, be part of this battle for power. Enter Sydney. Sydney kind of comes out of nowhere. No one knows who she is, where she comes from. All I know is she is competing for a candidate house, and Sydney is on a mission, and she is not going to stop until this mission is successful. And so you follow Sydney as she is hoping to accomplish this task that she has imposed upon herself. Sydney is an amazing character to read about. She is strong, independent. She don't need no one. She is like, I got this. I really loved Sydney as a character. I loved the story that this told. This was initially advertised as a standalone, but Kat Howard is releasing a sequel to this, I think in June of next year, and I'm really excited to see the story. I think it ended well, and it could be just fine as a standalone, but I'm excited to see what happens next with Sydney. The next book I'm going to talk about is A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. I believe the first person I heard talk about this, or that I remember, is Abigail at Abigail's Cup of Tea. This is a YA series. I gave this 4 stars, and I have the next book in the series that I'm really excited to read. This series, this book in particular, you are introduced to Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson. They are descendants of Sherlock and Dr. Watson. They are at a boarding school in Connecticut. Jamie Watson has always known who Charlotte is and Charlotte's relationship to Jamie, but I don't believe they've ever met prior to them kind of crossing paths at this boarding school. Something happens where Charlotte and Jamie are kind of forced into working with each other to solve a crime to protect themselves, because they find themselves being the two suspects in this crime. It's a fun retelling, and I'm excited to continue this series. It was a cute, quick read, and the cover is really pretty. Next up is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I know both Haley with Haley in Bookland and Kayla with Books and Lala have talked about this. But I think it caught my eye on Haley's channel. I gave this 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book. I think it was an awesome, awesome read. So this book follows Imani. Imani is a teenage mom. She's trying to raise her daughter while still being a good student in school. Imani enrolls in a cooking class as like an elective in high school. She's really looking forward to it. She would love to be a chef one day, but she is kind of holding back on pursuing that dream because she doesn't think it's practical. She thinks that she's not going to have the opportunity to go to college after high school because her main focus has to be taking care of her child, and college costs money, and her number one priority is raising her daughter. So she enrolls in this cooking class but doesn't know if that is the path that she should take because she's trying to be a good mom. And so you just follow her journey of trying to balance being a good mom while also pursuing what she believes her dream and her calling in life is. So it was a really just good inspirational story. I think Imani is an amazing role model for young women to read about. I thought it was very inspirational. There's a cute little like budding relationship. There's a great friendship. Imani and her best friend, Imani and her grandmother. Like there's a lot of good inspirational relationships and inspirational characters. So I really, really enjoyed this. Next up is Six of Crows. I cannot narrow down one booktuber that introduced me to this book specifically because it's just something that everybody talks about, and I decided I needed to pick up. I had never read any of the Grisha-verse books. This is the first book I read in the Grisha-verse. I gave Six of Crows 4 stars. I probably would have given it a little bit higher had I read the Shadow and Bone trilogy first. There were times when I was like, I don't necessarily know exactly what they're talking about. I can kind of infer what's happening. But overall, it was a really quick read. I enjoyed reading about Kaz and his like ragtag gang. It was a lot of fun. If you don't know what Six of Crows is about, it follows Kaz Brecker and his ragtag gang. They are offered an opportunity to conduct this huge heist, and the reward is more money than any one of them can fathom in their wildest dreams. But it's an incredibly dangerous, risky heist, and they get themselves into some precarious situations while trying to pull this off. It's a good time. It's a good time to read about. I think I read most of this in like one afternoon at the salon. It was a pretty quick read, and I really, really enjoyed it. Finally, the last book I'm going to talk about, you actually just heard me talk about it in my October wrap-up. It is Misery by Stephen King. The first person I remember talking about this is Pints and Paperbacks, and I think since then Murphy Napier has also talked about this, and I know a lot of people, like Gabby just did a reading vlog for this. There's a lot of it's been like on BookTube a lot recently, but this book was written in like the 80s. It just sounded very unique, not like a book I've read before. So this book follows Paul. Paul is a famous author who has been in a car accident, and when he wakes up after this accident, he finds himself not in a hospital, but kind of kidnapped in a bedroom, and his caretaker is Paul's self-proclaimed biggest fan, and she is so excited to have been the one to rescue Paul. Things take a turn when Annie, his caretaker, discovers that Paul has killed off her favorite character in her favorite series of books, and that there is not going to be another one. she kind of flips a switch from being like a little bit crazy to incredibly crazy, and basically tells Paul, you are not escaping until you write another installment of Misery, and it has to be to my liking or you're not leaving. And things get increasingly crazy the longer you read, because you really start to learn that Annie is a lunatic. She is a psycho. She does some things and some stuff that is fairly graphic to read about. It was a good time. I gave this one 4 stars as well. I loved that this book was so good with such a minimal cast of characters. You have one main room as the main location for all of the action, and I thought Stephen King did an amazing job keeping things moving and the plot progressing with so little actually involved. It's very psychological, you're in Paul's head a lot, and how him figuring out what he's going to do to get out of his situation. So it was an interesting fall read. So these are 5 books I have read because of BookTube. Oh, let me know down below what books you have read solely because you heard about them on BookTube. You hadn't heard about them before, you hadn't seen them, you heard a booktuber talking about them and you said, hey, that might be interesting, and then you read it and then you ended up really enjoying it. I want to know so that maybe I can pick that up next. Anyways, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.